Hello, welcome. This is Senator Antonio Hayes from the 40th Legislative District in Baltimore City. I'm pleased again to be joined by my co-host, Dr. Ron Williams of the Coppin State University Strategic and Entrepreneurship. And this is Westside on the Rise Wednesdays, where we bring you information about West Baltimore development as well as legislative activity that may be affecting the west side of Baltimore and all of the great opportunities created by our trusted anchor institution, Coppin State University. Today, we're in for a treat. We are hearing from one of Coppin State University's very own alumni, and I'm going to turn it over to my co-host, Dr. Ron Williams, who will give some brief remarks and bring in our guests.
Good afternoon, Senator Hayes. Once again, I'm glad to be with you and glad to be with our viewing audience here for another episode of Westside on the Rise Wednesdays. The months have been ticking by so rapidly. It's hard to believe that we are now into our third episode of Westside on the Rise, but it's again good to be here. This is a really valuable information source, not only for the community, but also for all of the stakeholders in West Baltimore, and particularly those who are connected to the anchor institution of Coppin State University. So we've had a very, very active several months. Recently, President Jenkins, his investiture week was held. Also last month, the launch of the West North Avenue Development Authority, that initiative. So much work is happening in West Baltimore, so we are happy to be here once again. Today, we are going to share information about what's happening in the real estate sector, not only in West Baltimore, but very generally, because as you know, real estate is one of the pillars of economic development and economic advancement. So we not only have to know about it, but we have to be able to participate, actively participate in that sector. So in that regard, I am happy today to introduce our special guest. And not only is this special guest a native of West Baltimore, she is a Coppin alum. She is a graduate of the Frederick Douglass High School.
The historic Frederick Douglass High School.
There you go, the historic Frederick Douglass High School, right across the street from Coppin State University. So Hope Mims, CEO and principal broker of the Mims Realty Group, is our special guest. And the Mims Realty Group opened their doors. It's a boutique real estate company. They opened their doors in February of 2018. Hope has spent about 20 years in corporate America, working with Fortune 10 company. And there, she was intrigued by real estate and what real estate had to offer. So she transitioned to now being the owner, the CEO, the founder of her own brokerage firm. I cannot say, as one who has been in higher ed for 35 years, enough about how satisfying it is to see someone who was a student in your classroom now be the consummate professional and one of the leaders in her industry. So I want to introduce to you the CEO of Mims Realty Group, Miss Hope Mims, and she'll give you more about her background. But welcome, Miss Mims. We want to welcome you to Westside on the Rise.
Hi, thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Williams, for the great introduction. And Senator Hayes, thank you both so much for having me on today. I'm excited about our talk.
Well, we are excited about having you here as well. And you really represent so much of the greatness that comes out of West Baltimore, but also Coppin State University as an alum. But you are the epitome of West Baltimore genius and success. Douglas High School, Coppin, business owner. Tell us a little bit about your journey, about growing up in West Baltimore. How did you arrive to where you are now?
So I grew up in West Baltimore, Edmondson Village. I am the youngest of six. I grew up in a single family, a single parent household, and school was always important. My mom always told me, don't miss a day from school and you better not bring home bad grades. and so I did just that. I made sure that going to school and getting a great education was a part of my DNA. And as a result of that, I've been able to successfully navigate through high school, through college. And of course, as any college student, you have your bumps and your bruises and the things that you experience. But I was able to learn from those things and really cultivate a plan. What I saw was an opportunity in real estate for me to be able to help families, and not just help them, but help them realize home ownership. And so that was absolutely possible. And I'm so glad that I had the roots that I had that gave me that stick-to-itiveness to be able to stay the course and be able to come out on the other side. So I'm excited about where I am today.
Let me ask just one follow-up question before Senator Hayes jumps in with the question. You mentioned Edmondson Village, and I think the optimum word in that title is village. What can you say about your upbringing and your childhood or your experience as a child in Edmondson Village that probably contributed to your success today?
I think that, quite honestly, it absolutely, in those days, we're talking about like 1975, 76, 77, it was the community that helped to raise these kids. So if I did something wrong, I knew that by the time I got home, my mom already knew about it. And so I think that being able to stick together as a community absolutely helped to forge the way and forge the path for success for a lot of the students of that era. So my time spent in Edmondson Village, I live 5 minutes away from there right now. So I didn't go too far off the grid. I still live very, very close to there. I still have my family home there that I use as an investment property. So, I completely love the inner city communities and what we were able to produce out of those communities.
Hope, I'm excited about having you here today. A lot of the work that I've done in the legislature and my advocacy in the community is really around building generational wealth, and real estate and home ownership, as you most intimately know, is one of the ways in which we achieve that wealth. Owning a home is one of the most prized possessions and one of the most valuable possessions that families have. I think it's also one of the most effective tools to afford for affordable housing, because in our communities, a lot of time it may be Big Mama's house, but under Big Mama, you have, the sons and daughters and then the grandkids all under one roof. And so it's awesome to have someone with your experiences to help shepherd the opportunity towards home ownership. But if you could tell us a little bit about, there's residential real estate and then there's commercial real estate. I guess for some of those students or those that may be interested in this area, can you tell us a little bit about how residential differs from commercial, and the pathways to enter each subsector for those who may be considering careers in real estate?
Absolutely. So in terms of residential real estate is a feel-good situation. All of the emotions are involved, whether you're buying a home or whether you're selling a home. The person that's buying it, they're intrigued by everything that's involved. It could be a bumpy process, it could be a smooth process, but at the end of the day, they're going to get the keys to their dream home. If it's someone that's selling a property, that individual has spent years and years and years in that property. They've created memories, and it's very difficult to let those memories go when they're handing those keys over to the new home buyer. So that is very much a feel-good situation. However, with commercial, it's a little different. The time frame of a commercial transaction can be much longer. You don't get those emotional attachments in a commercial real estate transaction. And it can take longer. You know, the parties involved, it's just a business transaction. That's it. This is what I want. Can you give it to me? Let's negotiate. Will it work for both sides? Okay, let's make it happen. So that's really what commercial is. So in terms of the two subsectors, in terms of how someone gains entry into these particular areas, with residential real estate, the barrier of entry is very, very low. It could be a $250 course, which includes your classes. You finish the class. Once you pass the class, you spend $61 to take the licensing exam for the state. Once you pass that, then you are issued a license, and you have to hang that license with a brokerage. And once you have done all of those things and you get with that brokerage, you'll have things like to join Bright MLS to gain access to be able to see homes. Century Lock or Century Key, which allows you to be able to gain access in and out of homes. You'll have to become a member of a real estate board. The oldest board in the country is right here in Baltimore, which is GBBR, the Greater Baltimore Board of Realtors. So you'll join a board to become a member of, to be able to operate your business. So all in on the residential side, you can become a licensed realtor for about $2,400–2,500, and you can start practicing real estate and have a phenomenal career under the right leadership. On the commercial side, there are different areas of commercial that you can go into. You can go into leasing. You can go into strictly sales, selling real estate property, commercial real estate. You can go into development. That's also on the commercial side. So one of the other important pieces is that if you get a residential license that is a salesperson's license, you are able to practice residential and commercial. But if you take the class and you get just a commercial license, you cannot touch residential. So if someone is interested in doing both, then they definitely want to get the salesperson's license to enable them the ability to be able to do both sides.
That's helpful. I'm curious, when you were in school, did you take courses to lead you to this path, or did you have another major? What was your pathway there?
Well, my major was business. I also got my MBA at University of Phoenix, but I worked for a Fortune 10 company. I worked actually for Verizon, and I was there for 20 years. And a lot of the things that I learned about how to run a business, I learned there. And I got into real estate, quite honestly, just as a side hustle, just as, you know, I want to go on vacation, let me go sell a house. I want to buy a car, I need money for the down payment, let me go sell a house. But then once I got involved and I started seeing exactly how people were reacting, like I was just in awe. Like, I am having a hand in how this person feels about getting keys to a property that they never thought they could afford, that they never thought that they could get, that they didn't think their credit was good enough. And I had the pleasure of having a hand in making this process happen. That just made me feel so wonderful about the world of real estate, and it intrigued me to learn more and dive deeper into this career field.
You know, that is absolutely incredible, and you've hit a number of points that have generated other questions. I really appreciate the point in terms of the difference between the commercial and the residential being one of emotion, and the pride, the sense of accomplishment, the community building aspect of residential real estate, as opposed to the business proposition that is more associated with the commercial. And then what else I think really jumps out at me is your journey. Senator Hayes asked a question about, you know, your interests while you were in school. and real estate not being on your radar. But for so many, I think that it is a possibility. And what I was thinking about, you used it as a career trajectory, or I'll say a supplement to a career that was already in a Fortune 10 company. But your side hustle transcended your day hustle and you became a real estate person. That kind of trajectory, I think, is not too uncommon. Sometimes people find themselves not in a different area than they perhaps studied directly. Mm-hmm. But for many of our students, and this is one of the economic barriers that they encounter, is student debt and the loans associated, the burden of student debt coming out of school. That sets the person's economic trajectory back when you come out of school with that much debt. Mm-hmm. Is real estate a possible way of people earning while they learn? For example, if you were to get a real estate license at age 18 and become associated with the right brokerage firm while you are engaged in your studies, I would imagine that this could be a very valuable way of paying for school or contributing to your education so that you do not come out of the experience with as much debt. Do you think that is a possibility for some in this industry?
I absolutely agree. The earn while you learn is totally possible with real estate. Real estate affords you the freedom. It affords you the freedom to be able to create your own schedule. So if you are a student that's in college and you say, listen, I have classes on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 12 to 4. I'm going to sell real estate between 8 and 11, and then I'm going to come back at 5 o'clock and take more appointments and go on showings. It's totally doable. It is a very lucrative career path. One transaction, you would be able to walk away with upwards of $3,000 in one transaction. So for a lot of the people that are in the communities around the West Baltimore community, having that kind of money, we're now changing the community. We're changing the household, because now we're able to do things in that household that we weren't able to do previously. Now we're talking about that individual looking at creating wealth for their families and purchasing an investment property to be able to create that generational wealth that Senator Hayes just talked about. So I absolutely agree that the earn while you learn is a great pathway, especially in real estate.
Let me just say before Senator Hayes jumps in with another question that Ms. Mims is the chair of the Alumni Advisory Board for the Center for Strategic Entrepreneurship at Coppin State University. So we are very much working to try to create that type of pipelining into the industry. We have one of our graduates just finished the Master's in Real Estate program at Hopkins back in May. We have another graduate who's in that real estate program, master's program now. So we are developing a pipeline into the sector. I believe that will not only help our students pay for current educational needs, but also position them for growing family wealth.
No, fantastic. I guess I'm gonna go back to the idea around the wealth building, and especially when you talk about Black home ownership, right? Because I think that's key in developing a sense of community. Over the last 15 years, Black home ownership has declined more dramatically than any other race or ethnic group in the United States. I believe in 2019, the Black home ownership rate was as low as it was in the 1960s, when private race-based discrimination was legal. And many of us know that redlining, Baltimore City is the birthplace of redlining. And so there are some challenges also afoot that get in the way of the opportunity for home ownership, especially in the Black community. Have you, in your experiences, found ways or have any advice on how we can overcome and make sure that people know that home ownership is more attainable? Do you often run into people that see this as a huge obstacle towards home ownership? What do you attribute to the decline in Black home ownership here in Baltimore and in our country, in your experience?
That's a great question. I would say that I believe that those numbers are where they are because of a lack of access in the Black communities. I also think that financial literacy is non-existent. A lot of the individuals on the West Side, or even in any general predominantly African-American community, we don't have the access that other communities have. Access to information, access to programs, we don't have the access. And I believe that if children learned about financing or finances in elementary school, just the general basics of it, and that continued as a part of the curriculum through high school, we would see a different type of student in Baltimore City. I think that we don't do better because we don't know. And so when you know better, you do better. So once you start to learn about finances, you move a little differently. I didn't learn about finances in the household that I grew up in. It was a single family household. My mom didn't tell me about money. However, I really started to learn about money about 20 years ago. I remember, I was horrible with money. And my sister, she credit is impeccable. She said, you have way more money than you know what to do with. So she said, give me your checkbook. I did. I gave her my checkbook. In 2 months, she paid off my credit cards. She had all my stuff up to date. She gave me $50 a week. That was for gas. And one day I could eat lunch. One day I could eat out. Gas and to eat out. $50 a week. After she cleared everything up, she gave me back my checkbook. She said, can you maintain it? And I've been maintaining it ever since. She proved to me that I made enough money to do it. Sometimes in our communities, we just need somebody to show us the things that we shouldn't be doing, a better way to do something, and to see and really see the result. I was able to see the result. She didn't just tell me, she showed it to me.
No, that's interesting that you say that. I often argue, and the state has tried to, have different tools to make it a little bit easier. Because if you look at, the recent graduates from Coppin, Morgan, any of the schools in this area, oftentimes the graduates will move into rental properties where they're paying just as much for rent than they would in home ownership. One of the obstacles often is the down payment that's required. And so I've been trying to explore as many opportunities as possible. Do you see that continuing to be kind of the obstacle at people realizing, like, like your sister shared with you, you make enough money, you have enough income, is how you use your money is the key to getting it done. Do you find that in a lot of, especially as you deal with, younger people, that they see this as kind of like, the unattainable obstacle to home ownership?
Yes, absolutely. So a lot of individuals that come to us, whether it's a student or not a student, most people don't save money.
Yeah.
And so they can't see how I'm working a job. I've had time on this job, but how do I put to the side $50 every other week? How do I do that? And so it's just a shift in mindset. And really it's about focusing on the goal. But I think that we've hit the nail on the head with these resources that are available to potential buyers. There are so many resources that are available for down payment assistance programs. It's a matter of taking a class and getting a certificate And once they've gone through that home ownership class, that certificate lasts for a year. They have up to a year to find a house. And so these programs are really beneficial, and it's really paved the way to get individuals into homes with financial support that they otherwise would not have had.
Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. Also, and one last question, because you're sparking my mind here. I look at neighborhoods adjacent to Coppin State University and up and down as we talk about the West Side and around Coppin, and what I'm hearing from some of the folks is that right now it's definitely the supply, because of COVID or whatever reasons, the courts not being open. The supply don't necessarily meet the demand. What effect do you think that may have had on communities, or are you seeing that here in Baltimore and in some of the places where you're working at now?
Absolutely. Right now it's a seller's market, and real estate is all about supply and demand. So with it being a seller's market, that simply means that there are more buyers in the marketplace that are looking to buy homes than there are homes that are for sale. So sellers are winning. So in that West Baltimore area surrounding Coppin, the property values have gone up significantly in the past 24 months. So in any individual that has a home that's looking to sell or thinking about selling in that community, that's a homeowner's community. So most of the individuals that live around there might be Big Mama's house, and the uncle and the aunts still live there. Those homes may be paid off. There's a great opportunity for individuals that are looking to sell to be able to really cash out. With buyers, to your previous point about a student paying rent, and that rent is just about what they could pay for a mortgage, that's why we're seeing an influx in buyers in the marketplace, because interest rates are so low. And with interest rates being as low as they are, it affords them the opportunity, once you do your calculations, if I'm paying $1,800 in rent, I could buy a house for $1,400. It totally makes sense for me to buy a house as opposed to renting. So the average time frame that an individual, this is in the real estate community, what we look at. If you plan to rent for 5 years. If you're going to move somewhere else, then renting makes sense. If you plan to stay there more than 5 years, then you should have purchased. If you run up on 5 years and you're planning to stay, then you should purchase. What we often do in our communities is we look at Big Mama rented, my aunt rented, my sister rented. Nobody in my family owns anything. So I'm just going to do what everybody else is doing. But that's not how you build wealth. You build wealth by purchasing. You build wealth by building a rental portfolio where if you didn't work a job, you could get rental income every single month like clockwork. So just being able to have these opportunities and be exposed to this type of information definitely makes us better individuals in terms of being able to build wealth for our families, because it's not about what we do today, it's what we allow for our children in the future.
No, I definitely appreciate that. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Williams, but this has been an enjoyable and informative conversation. It's just validated some of the stuff that, we've been working on just this past session. Most people may be familiar with the Live Near Your Work program, but we just most recently sponsored a piece of legislation called Live Near Your School, whereas institutions of higher education can have an opportunity to work with current students or students that graduated within that 5-year period that you're talking about and have some better down payment assistance. In Baltimore, our population, the white population, is pretty much stabilized. We're not losing or gaining. It's kind of equaling out. The Latino and the Spanish population, the Latino and the Asian population is growing, but the population that we seem to be losing here in Baltimore are African-American folks, and the one population that we're losing the most are professional African-Americans. And so we have some of the greatest institutions, Coppin State University, Morgan State University, Bowie State University. We have some of the great institutions, and I think we have an opportunity specifically to Baltimore to provide more options to, pathways to make it, to having people call Baltimore home. So thank you so much. It's validated a lot for the direction that we're going in, and I'm looking forward to what is in the future for West Baltimore. Dr. Williams.
Yes, this has been incredible, and Hope, what you're doing and everything that you represent is so important for the community and for our institutions. One last statement, if you could, if you were speaking to before we close out, if you were speaking to your younger self, or to a couple of generations from now, what would be the top couple of pieces of advice that you would give them, to your younger self or the future generations as it pertains to real estate?
To my younger self, I would say invest in real estate early. Learn about money. Learn what it can do for you. Learn what it can do for your family, for generations to come. I think that if I had learned that early on, I would be in a totally different place right now. So I would tell myself that. I would also tell my younger self, stay the course, because everything that you want is going to be on the other side. Just stick with it. Because I didn't have that confidence early on, and I'm seeing it now. I'm seeing all the doors that are opening for me. I'm seeing that now. And so I would tell my younger self, don't worry about what you see happening down the street. Don't worry about what you see happening around the corner. Don't worry about how your friends graduated early. Don't worry about that. I would definitely have that conversation with myself.
Very good. Well, we thank you. And we're looking forward to the contributions that you will make as a business owner, as a founder, as a Coppin alum, as the chair of the Alumni Advisory Board for the Center for Strategic Entrepreneurship. How do people get in contact with you?
Well, you can certainly follow me on Instagram at Hope Mims, also on Facebook as well. I'm also on LinkedIn as Hope Mims. So you can follow me on all three of those platforms at Hope Mims.
At Hope Mims. And so we thank you for all that you're doing and all that you represent. This has been a very fruitful, again, as we started, month at Coppin. Just this past week, we celebrated Global Entrepreneurship Week, and we want to thank Ms. Mims for her participation in that as well. On Monday, we had a kickoff brunch for a number of stakeholders were with us on Monday. And then Wednesday, we had two webinars. One was presented by the Baltimore Community Lending Group about access to capital. And we also had a session with PNC Bank that spoke to the necessity for our younger entrepreneurs to have a banking relationship, not an app on the phone, but a banking relationship. And then we closed out on Thursday with a poster presentation from a community innovation poster presentation from our faculty, and then our 5 founders, African founders. So the whole theme of community focus and global impact is very much real at Coppin. We thank Senator Hayes for this partnership and Westside on the Rise and all that is meaning in terms of sharing information to our constituents. The semester is moving quickly. We have a lot of programs that we're standing up. Our students will be on Capitol Hill on December the 6th, participating with the Center for Strategic Entrepreneurship in the Capitol Hill Makers Fair on that date. So we're looking forward to that as well. But thank you so much. Senator, do you have any parting remarks before we close out?
No, thank you. We appreciate the opportunity for you sharing with us. I think you at the helm of the Strategic Entrepreneurship Advisory Committee is definitely a value added, and especially, oftentimes, in the circles that I travel in, we look outside of Baltimore for the talent. And right here, Baltimore, born and bred, we have another example of, Black excellence. And so we're so delighted to have you here, and hopefully the knowledge that you share will be useful to those who are watching, and also will serve as an inspiration to students that are coming in the future. So thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you, both gentlemen. The pleasure was all mine. Today's talk was absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for the invite.
Thank you. And we'll close out now. Westside on the Rise, November episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. We look forward to next month when we'll focus in on the commercial side of the real estate industry. Thank you very much.